In this fourth section, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at some of the more specific developments in the European theater that we're going to be calling the Middle Ages, that time period after the collapse of some of the last remnants of the Roman Empire, and then before the more modern age. And even defining that area is going to be a little bit fuzzy, but work with your textbook and we'll be talking essentially about the era between about year 500 all the way through to about 1500, but it's going to vary. Don't think that the term is very rock solid in listing just a specific time frame, but hang with the authors of your textbook. We'll be working our way through several different things. First of all, we'll start with a conversation about the Eastern Roman Empire that is now going to be called Byzantium. It is going to inherit that eastern chunk of the old empire, the one that was Greek, urban, and relatively wealthy, while the Western Empire, of course, has fallen apart under the Vandals and other invasions of other outside peoples. We'll then also talk about the influence of the movement of Islam with Muhammad and the development of Islam as a central successor to the Judeo-Christian tradition, and in many ways is going to be claiming itself to ultimately be part of the Roman tradition, one of the heirs to the Roman Empire and one of the heirs to the Roman tradition of government and control. We'll then continue through with a deeper conversation about the differences within Islam, much like we've seen some of the differences within other religious groups, and there's growing ones in the Western Christian community. We'll also talk about the division and the spread of Islam through the Shia and Sunni split. We'll work our way through then into the time period of the late 8th and early 9th centuries in Western Europe. We'll focus some time looking at the empire of Charlemagne, Charles the Great. Around the year 800, he's going to be creating a new Western Roman Empire, one that's going to be very different from the preceding Roman Empire, but nonetheless is going to be inheriting some of the traditions and powers. We'll then also look at the next step of Europe as a highway, in the sense there are, again, a significant number of peoples who are coming into Central Europe and Western Europe from outside. They're going to be providing central challenges to the governments and religious systems and economic systems of Europe. And these are people who are going to be in part at first coming in and raiding, and then many of them raiding and then staying. And that's going to, of course, alter the way in which Europe is going to operate. We'll also spend some time taking a look at the rise of a better agriculture, as there are some improvements in agriculture in the sense that they are able to grow more food more efficiently, take some of the old ideas of the Roman Empire and improve them. And there also is going to be the rise of cities and trade, as people are not necessarily needed, all of them, in agriculture. There are opportunities now later in the Middle Ages for them to be drifting into areas of urban civilization and settlement, and specializing in areas of artisanship of different kinds, as well as long and short distance trade. We'll continue with that theme of what's happening in the cities and take a look at the rise of the university systems in the Middle Ages, as there is a professional need both within government as well as the church for highly trained personnel who know language skills, have sophisticated mathematics and understandings of accounting and the training in which they go through. But also, many of those people are going to be on the edges of philosophical movements, as the Christian movement is trying to find a different way to express itself and to understand who and what it is. We'll then take a look at one of the models for the sort of ultimate sort of feudal king. We're going to take a look at William of Normandy and his invasion of England and the model that he is going to bring to the English experience. And the English experience in terms of Western civilization is vital because, as you know, for many of this, including the United States and Canada and other places that have been colonial possessions of England, many of the traditions and ideas of this growing and aggressive governmental system under William and his descendants is going to come to us in various forms, and so we are much more familiar with that sort of English history as we look at our own. We'll also take a look at the idea of what's going to be termed papal monarchy, where there will be an active effort by the papacy, by the bishops of Rome, to set themselves up as powers in Europe, holding their own territories, collecting their own taxes, and operating as if they were an empire unto themselves. From there, we'll also continue to look at the idea of what is going to be called the Crusade mentality, both within Europe, where there are going to be Christians who are going to be organizing military efforts to go after and remove non-Christian elements in Europe. We'll see some of this in Iberia, modern-day Spain and Portugal, which is the continent or the peninsula called Iberia. We'll also see it as it's projected towards the Old Holy Land, as European Christians start to see a return to Jerusalem as a vital, compelling need of their society and culture. There's also going to be later on some crusades within Europe and other places, in southern France, and then later on in Eastern Europe, especially in the area of Poland. But in each case, this is an attempt by religious authorities to, in many ways, have the spread of Christianity and also to solidify its hold over almost all the regions in Europe, and there is significant resistance. As we move forward, then we'll also talk about Magna Carta. When we're talking about the idea of a consolidated government and the power of a centralized government in England, we have to go back into the origins of some of the key legal changes, and that is going to be having us look at the Magna Carta of 1215, a legal document that, for lack of a better term, is going to finally make the monarch live under the law as opposed to being above the law. From there, we'll take a closer look at what's happening in Eastern Europe with the rise of the Mongol Empire, the Empire of the Steppes, and their emergence out of Central Asia to include control of large chunks of Eastern Europe. They are not going to control large sections of Central or Western Europe and have less influence on, say, the French or the Spanish or the English, but they do have a deep, profound impact on the development of Eastern European history, especially in Russia, and it is a special element that we want to understand as we take a look at the medieval era. We'll close our coverage of this area with the sort of bleak outlook of the Black Death, the 14th century plague that will take somewhere between a third and a half of the entire European population in the time period of about 4 years, and take a look also at the economic impact that that will have, as well as social impact. And then we will close part of this section here with a conversation about the 100 Years' War. That is a large, long-term war, especially in France and between the English and the French. It will in many ways alter the European map as well as the economics of the era. And as we finish this section, we'll be taking a look at the impact of that war, what it did in terms of altering the European experience and creating and fostering an idea that's not exactly like nationalism, but is going to be coming mighty close. And then, of course, we have some time to take a look at the disintegration of the entity of the Catholic Church from being one unified body into one that will break into pieces, regarding some issues that are going to be laid out for you later on. But the Church is going to go into an era when it has gone from being a papal monarchy, an attempt at a united, very controlling, very powerful entity, to a entity that's going to split into pieces and need some outside assistance to fix some of the controversies. And then we'll close with a simple overview of essentially where Europe is in many terms, economic, social, political, and where they are right at the end of the Middle Ages as we start to take a look at the modern era.